Today, on Please, Dear God, don't let my wife see that I'm spending even more money. Honey, if you're watching this, look away, look away, look away. And how am I spending money today? Hey, first of all, let's be real about this. I got a good deal on it. That's my excuse. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. That's right, a Hermes-Lite 2. A friend of mine is way too busy with work to go play radio, and he decided he was going to clear out a bunch of stuff out of his shack. He's going to get back into it later on once he's no longer working 60 hours a week. And he made me a good deal on this. He made me a fair deal on this. It's something I've been wanting to play with for a long time, but you know, life and money and things. So here we are. If you're not familiar, the Hermes-Lite is an SDR that is open sourced. You can go download the schematics and have some PCB factory build you a bunch. Most of the time people are getting it together and doing group buys because building one is kind of ridiculous. When you build 100, it actually makes it affordable. It is a QRP rig. As you can see, there's not much to this radio. You have power input for 2 amps, 11 to 16 volts, an Ethernet port, a few LEDs, a couple of SMAs, and a key PTT socket. On the back, we have an antenna port, we have an RF1 port, and external something. I think it's an external trigger. There are other things you can add to this kit that are not part of the kit that I got from my friend. I may look into adding them on later, but for now, this is all the work I need to keep my brain moving along. I'm gonna pop this open and show you the guts of it. The little Ty Wheats screwdriver kit. If you want something like this, I'm pretty sure Steve, Temporary Offline, has a deal with them or a coupon code or something. I got mine off of Amazon. Ta-da! I read up on this ahead of time. The front and back are single layer PCBs. So you got to be careful when you're screwing and unscrewing things. You don't want to get 800-pound gorilla strength on it, just enough to hold it together. But that's the radio. As you can see, there's not much to it. I'm not gonna fully take it out of the case because I don't want to have to deal with full disassembly, but there is a grounding lug that goes through the main PCB to the chassis, so you can ground the radio there. Now you may ask, why is Carlos excited about this? It's simple, okay? I've been tempted with the idea of flex radio since I learned about flex radio. It's really neat to be able to have a station at my home that I can use while I'm away. But the price of a flex radio, even on the opening end, is a bit more than what I'm willing to spend right now, given that I really don't have any experience with it. Here comes the Hermes-Lite 2, and it lets me have a very similar experience, by no means the same. Look, I understand you flex radio owners have a wealth of tools at your hands that I'll never have with this thing. However, it lets me wet my feet into the water, and it lets me know whether I really want to continue down that road or not with very little expense. You could say that I can also rent time on a flex radio, and I sure could, but then at the end of the day, I am still left with just time spent on a flex radio and no physical hardware that I own, where with this, if I buy the Hermes-Lite 2, when I decide that I'm going to move on to something else, I can always sell it and recoup some of my expense. The appeal of the Hermes-Lite 2 being crowdfunded, or crowd buy if you will, is that you can get this thing for a reasonable number of dollars and still be able to have a radio that is an SDR. With all that said and out of the way, the documentation I found wants you to use sdraradio.com version 3 or better. And I could use this. However, it didn't take much reading to find that there is a better way. So apparently my radio changed IP addresses. Let me go search for it again. Getting back to SDR console, I can select a radio and start it, and sure enough, we have signals here, and this is fine. However, this interface is very MS Access 2000-like, and it doesn't tickle my desires to use. And the other software, which was what was recommended to me, is a little prettier and it has a more usable interface, and that's this thing. I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but I'll say THATIS or THATIS HL2. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. And this looks a whole lot more like what a Flex radio control looks like. And, you know, I'm pretending to have a Flex, right? So I may as well pretend. Let me power this on. Let's go to setup and change the IP address because I know that it changed. And sure enough, we have access to all the stuff here. Now, this software also required me to get around and figure out how to do some things. I'm not going to pretend that this is all 100% intuitive, but I will run you through a couple of the things that I found interesting with. First of all, I can set the bandwidth that I want to monitor down here. Right now I have it set to what we're used to, 2.9K or thereabouts, right? We're used to that. I can set the bandwidth to 5K if I want, and you'll see that this section here broadens. You see how it changed? But we're in the amateur radio world, so 2.9K is where we want to be. Going from bandwidth over here, you can also use the slider, and you can use the shift register here. Going to mode selection, lower sideband, upper sideband, digital sideband maybe? I haven't, no, this is digital down here. But you can see you select your mode here. I got to look up and figure out what some of these buttons are. You can select your band, and you can lose network connection again. Keep in mind that I'm recording this over a VNC session to a computer in my shack, and that there's some latency involved with this. This is not a really good representation of what you're going to see if you use the software or any software for this kind of a radio. However, I just wanted to show that we can get into amateur radio SDRs starting inexpensively, and that we can scratch that itch, and if it's a real itch, we can then turn around and after playing with it and practicing with it, we can go and buy the fancy schmancy Flex radio, right? And as you can see, the radio by itself is $269, which is not terribly expensive given what it is. And then once you add some items to it, you end up in the $300 range. Is it the cheapest thing ever? No. But, it's reasonable. For example, the kit that I bought was the Hermes-Lite 2, the Hermes-Lite 2 N2 ADR, and the Hermes-Lite 2 enclosure. I don't have this Hermes-Lite 2 I/O board. I may add it in the future, but for now, I want to scratch the itch at the lowest expense possible and see if it's something I want to go down that road with. And then if it is, then I might add a couple of things, and it might add an amp, might add a tuner, just to experiment with. And then, at some point in time, if this is really still working for me, then I will go ahead and buy a Flex, right? But as an entry level, this is absolutely totally doable. So you can see it has two VFOs. You can VFO A and VFO B. You can keep them synchronized, or you can keep them off sync. The frequency block here, you can either enter your own frequency by hand by clicking in here and then typing it out, or you can use a mouse and a scroll wheel, and if you hover your mouse above the 2 and go up with your scroll wheel, you'll see that it goes to a 3. Or you scroll down, it goes back to 2. And the same applies with all of these fields, including the hertz. If your mouse is down here in the waterform and spectrum area, and you roll the mouse down, it'll go down by 10 hertz, or up by 10 hertz if you roll it up. As we walk around the perimeter here, we're going counterclockwise. This is not intuitive by any means. My approach to this is not intuitive by any means. We can add the second VFO in here by clicking on the RX2, and you will see that you have both VFOs running. Since they're both synchronized right now, they're both going to show the same thing. If I take them out of sync and take VFO B and down by 100 kilohertz, now you'll see that the top is showing VFO A, the bottom is showing VFO B, and the waterfall that you see here is for VFO A. If I wanted to see the same thing up here, we're going to have to go down to the controls for the waterfall. VFO A is in Panafall, and then VFO B is in Pan Adapter. If I switch this to Panafall, I will have the same on both, right? It's all about configuring the user interface to whatever you want it to be. As we keep on going around the interface, you can trigger a tuner with this button. You can trigger monitoring, so anything you say you'll hear in the headphones. MOX is for transmission. So if I click on that, I will be in transmit mode. And I got to figure out what these other buttons do. Let's see. Activates Pure Signal 2.0 auto calibrate mode. Okay. I don't know what Pure Signal 2.0 is, but I'll have to look into it. I know that I can record all my QSOs off the air and then I can play them back, or I can play something back into the transmitter, I think. Let me see. Nope, it's not letting me play it back, which is fine. In here, you can change your settings, so your master AF and your RX1 AF, your RX2 AF, your AGC gain and how much drive you have, your AGC settings and attenuation, and where your squelch is at. As we go around, we have more controls. We can split the setup, we can go A to B, we can 0B to signal, we can go to B to A, and so on and so forth. This is just basically all the buttons that you would normally have on a high-end radio, but now they're software buttons. There is a trick to setting this thing up, which is not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to basically prime the pump. Show you that I got this thing, that I'm hoping to make a few videos about it and see how it behaves, how well it does for me. If it does well, then it will have a home in the shack, and if it doesn't do what I want it to do, then I'll just sell it on. Right now I can absolutely see buying a tuner, and I very likely will be buying an amplifier. I do have an amplifier that I bought from Vince, BE6LK, for my 705 that I haven't even used yet. I haven't even tried to set it up yet, and I may put it to play here to see how well it does. However, there's a couple of gotchas with this thing. This is a software-defined radio. It doesn't have a microphone. It doesn't have a PTT button. It doesn't have a screen to speak of. So how do you hear the signals? Well, you have to use a computer, and the computer's sound card is how you listen to the signal, and the computer's sound card is how you have a microphone attached. So if you have a typical computer with a headset, good to go. You can also do what I'm doing with this setup, which is I took the XLR computer interface that I have for my computer in the office, and I put it out in my shack computer for the purposes of playing with this, and I have a regular studio quality microphone attached to it that allows me to change the gain on that microphone, and a set of decent headphones that allows me to hear the signals. But you don't have to get that fancy with it. You can absolutely do this the easy way. This is a start. I need to play with this and figure out how to set up this software so that it routes the audio signals of it out so that I can use it with JTDX for digital modes. This is, without a doubt, a cool way to start. I'll play with this some, figure out some of the things that I need to figure out, and make another video about those things as things come about. In the meantime, we'll catch you guys on the next one. 7-3.